Right there. That's it. Now I can hear you perfectly.
All right, and
Perfect.
we're live as well, so that's... G'day, everyone. I'm Mick Solomons, the developer of the Starting Strength app, and alongside me, Starting Strength coach Alex Koseri.
How's it going, guys?
And Wichita Falls Athletic Club legend, Rusty Holcomb.
What's up, y'all?
How many new Instagram subscribers have you got since we started doing these live streams?
And at least two.
At least two.
At least two.
At least two.
Well, glad it's something good's coming out of this.
Yeah. My internet presence is being known now.
Let's start with a question from Brian B, who's been emailing me relentlessly for the last few days complaining about the app. Yeah. Basically, I'm not going to read his whole question because there's a lot of text, but basically he's plateauing on the novice linear progression. He said he's been following a good diet and good rest, and believes he's ready to do some light squat days or some back off sets, or even 3x3 for his bench, but the app doesn't allow him to do it. And at that point, I actually told him to jump on a strength club, which is the intermediate app, which would allow him to do that stuff. Basically, he wants to know why that stuff isn't in the novice app. So, do you guys want to take a guess as to why we don't put that stuff in the novice app?
Because then you'll have to put the advanced stuff in there too, and you'll be working for the rest of your life.
That's one reason.
Yeah.
What do you reckon, Rusty?
Because people will just jump straight to it. That's what will.
Yep.
That's what will happen.
That is the exact reason we don't put it in there.
Yeah, they'll do an LP for 3 weeks tops, get bored with it, and be like, "Oh, I got to do something else." And they'll start something else, and then they're just stifling their gains.
Yep. That is the exact reason, Brian, why we don't have it in there. People just jump to it way too quickly. So we want people to follow the program because it works. So
Yep.
I've been running into this on the Reddit a lot about people just kind of like conceptually asking what to do and what the consequences of it are. To start, the consequences are nothing. So you'll see a lot of the SSCs be like, you won't explode. You won't catch on fire. If you add a light squat day in, the worst thing that'll happen is that you do a light squat day. So just follow your heart. But if you really care about your progress, either outsource your thinking or start learning yourself. So if you get practical programming and start like actually attempting to learn, you'll be able to answer your own questions. And if you don't feel like doing that because learning is for nerds, then you should get a coach.
Yeah. I don't have as much of a holistic following as that. I don't think you should ever follow your heart. You should follow what.
Are you talking about strength training now, or are you talking about is your love life?
Ever
follow your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Read some books. Read practical programming. Stay on the LP until it shits out, and then use your balls and continue to lift heavy weights.
That's probably good advice from me, to be honest.
I like that.
I hang around Rip way too much.
Yeah. When are you and him just going to join as one person? All right. Well, let's get cracking with the form checks. Abdul Aziz, he sent me through his form check just about 30 minutes ago, actually. So good timing there, mate.
All right.
Man, that
quite
is
the setup.
I thought for a second there he was squatting in Crocs, but I realised it's just the colour of his shoes.
We wouldn't be so lucky.
The first thing I'm noticing, I hope that platform isn't squishy. It's not a pad. I hope it's actual wood or something solid. You should be squatting on something solid. And move the rack onto that platform. You don't want to be making a habit of taking a step up as you're coming out of the rack. You get under a heavy weight, and that's going to be a bad deal. That's a good way to fall backwards and trip over your own feet. But that's just my initial look at this.
So from this angle, it seems like the bar is a little bit too high. I think you're trying to do the high bar, low bar thing. So make sure, you can reach over your shoulder, feel that ridge on the outside of your shoulder blade, get the bar notched right under there. And the next thing is you're looking straight down, so it's giving you the illusion that you're actually hitting depth. Move your gaze up. So basically, maybe like a foot past where the end of your squat stands are. And then just thinking about dropping your hips backwards in space rather than straight down. You're leading with your chest, but I think that's just a function of these being so light. Whenever it does get heavy, you'll have to hip drive or you'll get stapled. So,
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Even if it is light, you still need to be practicing that hip drive so you don't get into bad habits and start raising your chest early in the squat.
Mhm.
And as Alex said, looking straight down, not only does it give you a false sense of you're getting deeper than what you really are, it also rounds out your upper back. I've demonstrated this a lot to clients that want to look straight down. There's a difference between this position. Hope you all can see it. And then when you look down, that happens.
You'll need to move a bit.
Everything
You need to move back a
moves
bit, I think, Rusty, to see that in the shot.
Oh yeah, so right here, you
Yep.
see it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look down, your upper back will round out. So you want to maintain that neutral spine all the way up.
Mhm. I think some of the most technically precise writing I've ever seen is in the how to put the bar on your back section in starting strength. It is obnoxiously clear for a reason, So get the book, even if you just read those 2 pages about how to put the bar on your back, that'll have a very high return. So, because it essentially covers, how to keep your thoracic spine extended, even though it's not, directly addressing it, just in how the bar is placed. So,
Yep. Got a couple of comments in the chat. Jeff Riggins, afternoon, gents. G'day, Jeff.
how's it going, Jeff?
Nandy123. This is he's ripping into it. He said the starting strength subreddit is full of bad advice and wannabe coaches who understand nothing. It is a read the book man, virtue signaling clusterfuck, and is best avoided.
Man.
Well, what have you got to say about that, Alex, the moderator of the starting strength subreddit?
I think I've told people to read the book less than 5 times. But yeah, it's a little bit crazy. You'll see a lot of people who I think are like trying to start their their SSC-dom, or even they're just novice coaches from somewhere else. And they'll just get like upset whenever someone does something wrong, which is like the weirdest thing to do when someone's clearly asking for help,
Yeah.
Because someone's like, help me. And then you'll just have a few guys who are just trying to throw rocks at them. But yeah, so that's why we put the SSC flair on there. And we try to keep it as drama free as possible. But if you think the starting strength subreddit could be better, you should start posting better advice. And then argue with me about programming on there as well. So.
And here's the thing. If you're getting mad at people because they're doing something wrong and they're wanting you to fix it or help fix it, you're not going to be a good coach. So just pick a different career.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get mad at people when they're not doing things right, because especially whenever they're on a platform right in front of you and you're telling them to do something and they physically do not know how to do it. If you start losing your temper at them, then that's just going to turn them off completely. And you're not going to be able to communicate effectively that way. So, control your anger, dude.
Mm-hmm. I've had a lot of people locally whenever I was in Virginia Beach, kind of reach out to me like, hey, I'm thinking about taking the platform exam. Would you watch me coach one of my existing clients now? And I'm not sure if it's just nerves or what, but it's a pretty common trend with novice coaches to be like hyper authoritarian, to be like, we need to fix this on this next rep, no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure, Rusty, you've seen 1,000 seminars. So like seeing that on the platform, it's probably like very apparent, but it's like a pretty empathy driven career and communication driven career. So it definitely is like it's awkward to see new coaches who are, you can tell they have good intentions in mind, but they're like, God, read the book. I can't believe you didn't do all these things that I'm trying to do. And they just kind of, very angsty.
Yeah. If somebody loses their cool on the platform at any point, that's an immediate fail. I mean, you just can't do it. You can't do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Rightio, Cole Muth, I think we had him last week. He was the guy with that was squatting with all of the shit going on in the background.
Mm-hmm.
We finally got around to form checking him after we made fun of everyone in his gym. I think I said I'm disappointed this time around that there's no one in the background we can make fun of, but
that's a shame.
Yeah.
Hopefully he made friends with that kid who was quarter squatting and got him away from that personal trainer.
See. This pulls, deadlifts.
Right.
These look pretty damn good, man. Let's see. I'm going to go back to the initial setup because I thought I saw something weird, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, your video's ahead of mine, so you go ahead and take that off.
Yeah, I'll take it on. Your setup looks good. You're following the 5 steps. Make sure your feet are set where they need to be set before you reach down and grab the bar. When you grab the bar and you were looking at your feet and you kind of scooted them forward, don't get in the habit of that. You want to be as robotic about this as possible as far as the setup goes. After the setup, honestly, man, you're kind of killing it on this. These look real good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way I like to think about this and the way I like to coach this about people is that, like, you can do whatever silly ritual that you would like to do before your hands get on the bar. The second your hands get on the bar, you need to make it as consistent and replicable as possible. You know, so a lot of times people, they'll put their hand on the bar and they'll kind of wiggle their fingers back and forth, get it set. Same thing with their feet. They'll kind of pitter patter. You can totally avoid that. You can do whatever dance you want prior to touching the bar, but as soon as it's on there, make sure, everything's very consistent. The next thing is that you are rocking onto your heels before you start the pull. And eventually, whatever that gets heavier, I've noticed, and it's not with everybody, so take it with a grain of salt, but that tends to get worse and worse. You're trying to solve the problem by falling backwards into it as opposed to pushing the ground away. So I'd be interested to see how this develops whenever it's like 4 something. But right now, no, these look pretty good.
Man, oh, sorry, go ahead, Russell.
I don't think the rocking back is as bad as a thing as long as it doesn't get in the way of those heavier reps. I tend to get back on my heels just a tad, and then I dig my toes into the ground. That helps keep the bar against my legs a little bit. And I haven't had too many people get in the habit of rocking back too hard. I have a couple kids that will do it, and then I have to correct that, but I don't think that's too big of a deal here personally.
You know what I think it is? I think people will see like ultra heavyweights, like the supers deadlift, and they'll have to, like reorganize 100 pounds of stomach to get up to the bar, and they'll do a dramatic rock back, and people will be like, oh, I guess that's how I deadlift. So, yeah, you'll see that in commercial gyms too, where people will do like the roll away, the roll back, and then they'll sit back into it. So
I was going to mention that video was like really good to watch someone who knows how to set their lower back. Just the way his t-shirt's quite tight there, and you can really see it. It's so obvious.
There's one glaring thing that I'm seeing is your lockout position with your chest. You're keeping your shoulders forward the whole time. Whenever you get into that lockout, you need to think about the bottom of your sternum getting stretched up just a little bit. That will help that lockout, because you don't want that bar to start rounding out your shoulders when it starts getting heavy. You want to have a solid lockout with a big chest. So that's the one thing that I would really fix on these. Other than that, they look pretty good.
I wouldn't fix those because it looks like if you pull it any higher, it's going to go right into your junk. So just stay there. Stay there. You'll see some people where it's just like, just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So blessed in some ways, not in others.
Yeah.
All right. Good work, Cole.
Well, you're gonna have to pick either between me and Alex, because I say that's a little bit harder.
The best solution is
a weak lockout.
The best solution is to wear compression shorts and just shift everything over to the side, and then you can have the best of both worlds. But
a lot of tape, athletic tape. Is that what you're suggesting here?
Yeah, just straight up in the waistband. That's probably your best bet.
Righto. Good work, Cole. Thanks for the video. We have Dustin Brecht squat next.
It's been an interesting angle.
Good work on cropping your video, Dustin, by the way. Thanks for that. Not having to watch 30 seconds of you, grinding your feet into the floor. And
yeah, you're going to have to back that camera up next time, dude, because it's pretty hard to tell what's going on, especially when the plates are in the way as soon as you start squatting.
Yeah, so these are definitely high, and whenever anybody is judging their own videos, if you have a safety bar there, chances are it's going to be level, and it's going to be a great reference for you to see, like, hey, am I actually hitting depth on these? And even in this, kind of where his line tapers on his shorts is basically almost exactly where his hip crease is, so you can see he's still a little bit high. So whenever you're judging your own videos, try and find landmarks like this to base all that off of. You're trying to stay a little bit too vertical, and your knees need to come forward a little bit more, hips need to come down a little bit more. So aim your face down and think about shoving your chest down straight in between your knees, and that should solve most of the problems. You're pretty strong. You can keep your back into extension, so this wouldn't really require too much fixing. But aim your face down, shove your chest down.
So I know beggars can't be choosers when it comes to equipment, but those safety bars are ridiculously high. I'm not even sure if he wanted to, he could get to depth because that bar is almost touching the safety bars with how high
do those look adjustable, or are those the fixed ones?
Those look solid. Those are welded.
Yeah, they're welded into place.
Yeah.
All right, just accept the risk and squat outside of a rack then. Fuck it.
Yeah, it's probably going to be your best bet.
Mm-hmm. I've seen some very creative people, though, who got those fixed racks secondhand. They'll put like a platform inside of it, so they raise everything up. Makes it
if you have access to rubber mats, you could throw some of those and give yourself another inch or two, and we all know that can make all the difference in the world. So,
not for Cole Muth. He's good. He's fine. He doesn't need any help. No.
All right.
We
done with that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
Look at Ellie.
All right. Yeah, get us another video, Dustin. We'll take another look at it. Oh, Elle. We have Elle.
Is it Elle or Ellie?
I think it's just Elle.
Is it just Elle? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Elle.
Yeah. I'm guessing just Elle. Which one are we going for? Squat, press?
Yeah, the squat.
Something?
We're going for the squat.
I
got a bit more. She sent me. Go ahead. I'll read this stuff later.
Okay. Yeah. Elle, you got to work on your depth, girl. You're squatting really, really, really high. And a lot of that's probably going to be because you're not pushing your knees out enough and sitting back into the squat. Do those two things, and that will probably fix that depth issue. Just think about at the very beginning of the squat, pushing your knees out and then sitting your butt back as hard as you can. Reach for the wall behind you, and make sure you're hitting depth on all of these. You don't want to get in the habit of squatting high, and then when you start getting into heavier weights, your squat will just progressively get higher and higher and higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw some of your squats before, and we know you can hit depth, so it's not like some sort of crazy tissue thing. But the adjustments I would say is that I think your toe angle was a little bit more severe last time you did this, So bring your heels in, I think, because your toes are wide enough as they are, and that should aid in shoving your knees out. What you want to think about, or one way that's pretty helpful, is not having your stomach touch your thighs on the way down until you are just at the bottom. So shove them out so dramatically that the only time you feel that contact is exactly at depth, and then you can shoot back up. But I'd be interested. Yeah, I'd be interested to see how these would handle in person. For a lot of people with short torsos, you have to lean over such like an incredibly uncomfortable amount. It just feels inorganic. So you may just have to accept the fact that it won't feel great, and get the extra 2 or 3 inches out of depth.
Yeah, you'll get used to it though. I mean, even if it doesn't feel good, you'll get used to it, and that will just be how you squat. I've been having hard time with one client in particular who sometimes things don't feel good, and I tell her things aren't going to feel good. I mean, you're not going to hit a heavy squat and everything. Oh man, that felt great the whole time. No, it's gonna suck because it's a heavy squat. You'll feel good when it's over because you got it, but heavy rack pull same way. But yeah, things might not feel great, but you got to do what you got to do, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in the short torso gang myself personally, so I have to lean over quite a bit. And I probably would say for like the first few months of me squatting it with an appropriate low bar style, I felt that something was wrong consistently, but I could look at the footage, analyze it, and it was exactly right every time. And eventually, your sense of perspective will change, but you just got to stick with it.
Yep. So Elle said a bit of info about herself anyway, just to, she said he's 2,300 calories and 140 grams protein enough. I'm 5'5", 155 pounds, 33% body fat, 104 pounds lean body mass. She's maintaining her weight. She said she could eat more calories, no problems, but she's struggling to get more protein. And she said she's recovering okay, except deadlifts are beating me up.
She said 140 grams of protein?
Yep.
Yeah, her protein intake is probably just fine. I never pretend to be a nutritionist, but that's a healthy amount of protein. What was her calories again?
2,300.
23.
Yeah.
2,300. Yeah. I think for a female, I think that's not bad. What do you think, Alex?
I think that's totally fine. I would be wary. Normally, whenever people say like hyper specific, this is how much lean mass I have, this is how much body fat I have. They tend to be using a kind of one of the fancier scales they have on the market now today. Be very wary of their accuracy. If you have like a long-term data plot, if you've been doing it every day for a year, sure, you can pull some trends out of it. But otherwise, don't worry about it too much. I normally go off of visual changes once somebody's already lean, and then outside of that, just waist measurement and body weight. I wouldn't worry too much about the percentages because you may just get caught up a little bit on the finer details. Yeah, I think that macro split's totally fine. In terms of getting protein in for the day, I found that most people think that like any meat has a significant amount of protein in it, and they'll be like, oh, I had like half a pound of ground beef, and it's like 85-15, and it's basically just fat. So make sure you're just actively choosing leaner sources, and then you should be able to blast past 140 pretty easily on 2,300 calories if you would like to.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan. I've got another video from Elle, her press. So look at the front press first. Oh, this is the side press.
Oh, I thought I was going to see a front squat. Damn.
No, but look, that's actually. I think I've renamed these incorrectly. But anyway, this one's from the side.
So the first thing I'm noticing is obviously the hips. So Elle, the hip. When you throw your hips, there has to be a reaction from your shoulders from your hips. So you're kind of just tilting your pelvis real hard forward like this, and nothing is happening in your upper body. And then you're using your arms to pull the bar down a little bit, and then you're driving it overhead. You need to think about your spine all the way to your pelvis is a rod. So whenever your hips shoot forward, your shoulders should come back just a little bit like this. That will clear your chin from the bar so you can press that bar up. And with that added movement of your hips, that bar can bounce a little bit. So you're trying to do your hips, but you're not actually making it a successful hip movement. So think about squeezing your abs, keeping your chest up, staying nice and tight. When you throw those hips, that bar should bounce a little bit, and should clear enough room so you can push right by your face and then stand up tall and give a big shrug. So I see that you're trying, but you need to start refining that a little bit.
Yeah, you're definitely creating a sensation of a bounce, which is correct. Yeah. But what you need to do is actually move some of your body parts to also make sure you still have your bounce. Normally, when people are doing something like this, what's happening is they're thinking that the hip throw needs to be really fast and not long. So think about sending your hips all the way out over your toes, and you're not going to have the option to keep your shoulders up. So you'll either take a step forward if your shoulders stay up, or your shoulders will go back, and you'll be doing it correctly. So think about getting your hips as far out over your toes as they can, and then you're athletic enough that you'll be able to snap out of it pretty quickly. Bar path is dipping away from your face when it doesn't have to. I think you've cleared enough room for your face. So one thing I always love for most people, frankly, is to do just the uprights drill if you have a tall squat rack like you do now. So take the plates off the side, get your bar into your rack position, walk right up to the uprights, and then press into it basically, so that if the bar deviates forward at all, you will clang into metal. Do that on your warm-ups. Maybe I don't know how much is on the bar right now. I think, what do we got? We got 65 plus some collars. So just try it with the empty bar. That should be a fine ratio, just to feel what it's like to have a hyper vertical bar path, and then try and replicate that with your bounce.
Yeah. One thing that might help with your hips too, it's natural. Females have a hard time doing this movement. It's not natural. Get your stance out wider. I've noticed with female clients, if I tend to get their feet out a little bit wider than they're comfortable with, their hips tend to go forward a little bit easier. So try to do that. Make sure you get that big breath and squeeze your abs before you do that, because you don't want anything from your hip line all the way to your neck. You don't want anything bending, right? Your hips go forward, shoulders come back, press the bar.
Yeah, I agree.
I've switched over to her other video, which is named side, which is actually the front. So if you want to jump on that one.
Yeah, I'm seeing that right now. Oh, yeah. I would definitely widen your stance.
I would put your lifters on too.
Yeah, definitely put some lifters on.
Yeah,
and the reason why
helps with the rebound.
Yeah. The reason why you had to take a step forward on that first rep is because you're not getting your face out of the way. You're pressing around your face. And if you push all that mass out forward, it's going to pull you forward. So you need to work on getting that, like Alex said, long hips, not fast hips, long hips. The speed will come with practice. But get your hips nice and long, get that head out of the way so you can drive that bar straight up.
Seeing this angle now, I would move your grip in to get a little bit of a higher elbow position. But that all the hip advice that we said is still valid even with the new grip configuration. I would honestly move those in a hand with. The one thing that I like to do for people on their setup, and it tends to work even not in person, is to say, put your arms straight out in front of you like a zombie and walk into the bar. Okay. Yeah. So what you're looking for is the angle between your chest and your arm to be 90 degrees, not any more open, not any more closed, and just hands straight forward, and that's on the grip width. I have a relatively wider shoulders than I do hips, and my grip width is still index finger on the smooth of the bar. I have a lot of clients.
Exactly how I get mine.
Yeah, I have a lot of clients who are just built like barn doors too, and they're at most 2 fingers width away from the smooth of the knurling. So that should work for most standard humans.
Yeah.
She knows how to grind, that's for sure. Good shot, good work, Elle.
She's definitely athletic. She's athletic enough for her to be able to do everything we're telling her to do.
Yep. Good work, Elle. Thanks for the videos. Melanie Sightnick is back with some more squat videos.
Rusty, you take this one. For some reason, it's playing sideways and the aspect ratio is all screwed up. So,
all right, let me restart this real quick. Okay, so one thing that I noticed that's a little bit weird, right before you squat, you tend to throw your hips forward, then push them back. Get out of that habit. You're just adding an extra movement that doesn't need to be there. And that way it gets real heavy. You're not going to want to have any of that extra movements. Let's see. You need to get your knees forward earlier. So you need to think about bending over earlier and get your knees to where they need to stop sooner. You've got some knee travel in the bottom, and that's why it's getting real hard for you. You got to stop your knees, keep your hips back, and use your hip drive a little harder. It's hard to use hip drive when your knees are sliding forward really hard. Those are 2 of the glaring things that I'm seeing. Quit throwing your hips forward, get your knees out and forward and freeze them, and sit back harder. I don't think this, I think this weight would be a lot easier if you were able to do those 2 things.
From what I can see, yeah, this is, I think, the one time that I agree with Rusty pretty wholeheartedly. So,
so she sent another video as well of her squat. So I'm just going to flick over
the Tubo one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the Tubo one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
The humble Tubo. Yeah, depth seems just about right on the rep that I've been through so far.
Yeah.
I was going to say she's doing it a lot easier, but then I realized there's no weight on the bar at all. So
yeah, no
exactly.
Weight.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to put some weight on that bar for this to be an effective tool. What I would do is on all your warm ups, use the Tubo. At those first few reps, it seemed like you were kind of feeling for it. You're trying to hold your knees back, and then I need to get them forward. Then at the very beginning, you need to think about squatting straight down and bending over. That will get your knees forward sooner. And when they touch, it's all hips from there. But you have the right idea whenever with that wood in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of times being afraid of knee slide can cause knee slide. So if you're afraid of actually using your knees, or oh god, I don't want to have everything shift forward in the squat, and you can hold your knees back. Mechanically, if you want to get to depth, they're going to have to come forward. So
that third rep looked pretty spot on. That third and fourth,
Mm-hmm.
your knees are getting where they need to go. So you've got the right idea. Now you just need to start loading that bar and getting used to it with heavier weights. Again, with an empty bar, you can do that all day long, but until you start putting weight on, that's when you're going to have to actually learn how to do it.
Yeah, good opportunity to make a friend in the gym too. Ask somebody for some Tubo help.
Yeah.
Thanks, Melanie. Peter Velchev, squat.
And look at the thighs, man.
Damn.
Yeah.
Got a bit of info from
Jesus.
Peter as well. I'll let you guys
Mm-hmm.
dissect this first, and then we can. Well, actually, I'll do it while we're watching it. He's set his latest work set weight at 92.5 kilos. He's 1.75 meters tall and weighs 97 kilograms. Pre-coronary,
I don't know what any of those numbers mean.
Yeah.
5'9" and 220. And pre-coronary worked his way up to about 245 pounds for a set of 3x5. And he was working on keeping his knees out as well as keeping his upper back tight. That's based on feedback from a form check on the forum.
Yeah. Those are two things that those are the only two things that are really glaring to me. Just work on keeping the knees out. Other than that, these look pretty solid, man. If I was there coaching you, I would not be mad about these squats. The knees out thing, that's a battle for some people, especially when the weight starts getting heavy. So just keep focusing on that. I don't know, Alex. Do you think that he should bring that stance in just a tad? It seems like he's a little wide from this angle.
No, I think you have quite long femurs as it is. Don't disadvantage yourself any more than you have to. So I think that stance is totally fine. Granted, you kind of have the tilt in your pelvis to be able to get away with it. I think these are totally fine. I would triple your bench and delt and chin up volume as soon as possible.
We can just assume that for everyone, can't we? Like that's going to be feedback for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Peter, I'm going to say something that's a little bit contrary to what Alex said. If you continue to have problems keeping your knees out, try bringing your stance in just a tad and see if that fixes it.
Rusty,
that's what I noticed.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I think that knees out is one of those perpetual problems. I don't really think for people who have a struggle with it at all, it really ever gets fixed. People will be like, oh man, I have a hard time keeping my knees out on my top sets, but that'll stay for their entire career. And I've been looking for more of a mechanical reason, or if I can find a trend in the anthropometry. But I've noticed for a lot of people who have the knees out problem, that's one of the ones that doesn't seem to change. I think that's kind of like a lifelong one, where you'll have to fight against it no matter what. It's almost more of a permanent cue, but it's not really that disadvantageous because, if you're trying to keep them out, that's half the battle.
Yeah. No, I agree that can be a problem with people that just sticks with them. Though I think there are ways to alleviate some of that problem. And I think bringing the stance in a little bit tends to help. I have a client early in the morning and we were having problems with his knees going out and he wasn't hitting depth because of it, or knees coming in and he was having a hard time hitting depth. So we brought his stance in just a little bit. His knees stayed out and he's hitting depth every time. So, it wouldn't hurt experimenting with it if you continue to have this problem. But I do agree with that. It does become people that have this problem, it tends to stick with them. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't strive to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Always keep trying to fix it. And then just as a general note, I just love people playing around with their stances. Love playing around with grip widths, all that stuff, just to have, a little bit more variation, make it a little bit more exciting in the day-to-day life of the lifter. So.
All right. Thanks, Peter. Next, we've got Brian Winther. The video is Press V Bench. So we had this guy on a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying that his bench was, more than double his press. So I asked him to actually send in a comparison video, which I'm pretty sure he's done here. So I'm just looking at his press at the moment.
Well, way to go. Thanks for following up on that. That was nice of you. Yeah. I'm about 2 reps in. These look totally serviceable. I don't think that this would be like a throttling point.
No. You do need to work on that lockout, though. Those first few were pretty weak lockouts. Let's see. I think your hip movement's pretty good. You need to keep your elbows up and forward a little bit longer. That will help that sticking point. But definitely work on that lockout. Every single one, you need to think about putting that bar through the ceiling and sticking it. Hard shrug on every single one.
Yeah, I'm on the bench now, so we'll see how
Yeah,
this goes.
I'm just now getting to it.
You skipped straight through to the bench, didn't you, Alex?
Yeah, that's the only thing I care about. Yeah. Yeah, I think you just have a relatively wide bench grip with a comparatively shorter ROM than your press. It makes sense for them to be tracking the way they are, but I think that you could probably add 10 pounds to this press right now and be totally fine. So your difficulty perception may just be a little bit off, that calculator in your head. I've noticed for a lot of people who are hesitant to actually kind of push their shoulder through on the lockout, is that they'll feel like a big stretch in their armpits or kind of, a tightness behind their shoulders just because, all the teres, lat, and triceps back there are getting stretched. Just be comfortable with it. It's not necessarily a negative sign or a factor that you should be moving to the next rep. You do pop out of your bench reps. So as soon as you lock out your bench rep, you don't actually even stop to rebrace. You just go and then drop into the next one.
Yeah.
So if that's a habit for all of your lifts, like the squat, the deadlift, and everything like that, I would work on changing that. Aim for a full lockout, rebrace, and then go for your next rep. But I think the press, it may honestly just be a programming thing. The next thing I would look for would be how often you're pressing, how much you're pressing. And then if you've been sequentially doing your pressing after your deadlifts, either immediately after on the day or later in the same workout, that could be it too. So you could be setting yourself up to have a weak press and not really know it.
Yeah. I think you said everything that I was going to say. You need to be a little more patient between reps. You don't want to be so patient that you're wearing yourself out just holding a bar, but you do need to make sure that you are set and ready for that next rep. Treat them like heavy singles, but you're doing a set of 5, right? So make sure you get that big breath and brace and be ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Alrighty. Thanks, Brian. That was actually a question from the comments we had. Just thinking about it now. Actually, I hadn't sent in a video before. Rob Biley. I've got a couple from Rob. First up, his bench video. He's another guy who needs to learn how to crop his videos for us. I think if you get up to about 40, if you get to a minute, that's when he starts actually benching.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm at 55 seconds.
Yeah.
There we go.
I like it though. You can see the setup. His platform says manly strength. That's cool. Somebody's snatching 1,000 pounds on it.
See, Rob, I would control these reps a little bit more. You're bouncing this off your chest really hard. So, you're turning it from a strength movement to a bone strengthening sternum movement. So I would take the weight down a little bit and learn how to control your reps. You want to, if you touch your chest a little bit forcefully, that's fine. But the bouncing it off your chest is helping you with these reps, and it should not.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I'm not seeing too much of a issue with these.
You're collapsed a little bit at the upper back, and I've noticed that people who do that tend to bounce the reps a little bit more. Right now, your chin is basically tucked straight down into your chest. So I like to have the nose tilted up a little bit, so look a little bit up and behind you. You don't need to be staring at the bar to do your bench. And then with that, you're going to have to control your descent a little bit more, and you'll be able to focus on returning the bar to your shoulder rather than just blasting it off of your ribs. I think the rest of the advice was solid. I honestly, it's very possible you're not packing your shoulders very much too, but it's a little bit hard to tell from here. So.
Yeah, and this might just be a artifact of the fact that it's a heavy bench and you're bouncing it off. But as soon as it seems like that bounce stops and your arms actually have to take over, your elbows are flaring out real hard. So decrease the weight, keep your elbows slightly ahead of the bar up until around lockout. Your shoulders will thank you dramatically for that.
A couple of comments in the chat. Melanie Sightnick said, "Thanks, fellas. I'm determined to get this squat right. Appreciate the input." And G.Lock, do you guys have a recommendation on belt or knee wraps while benching like Rob is?
Belt, if you have giant lats, you can kind of bite your lats into it a little bit to help you set your back correctly. It gives you a little bit of tactile feedback, but other than that, if you're benching 500 pounds, you probably have your own opinion, but for most people, they don't really need a belt. Knee sleeves, they look cool. They make your quads look bigger, so that's fine.
Yeah, I've never worn a belt when I bench. I've never really seen the need for it. However, some people feel tighter with a belt, and that's personal preference. Nobody's saying you can't wear a belt. Try it with a belt, try it without a belt, see which one you like more.
Okay, there we go. I've got another video from Rob. Power clean.
Ooh.
And Brian from the press versus bench video before just said thanks fellas.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Brian. Figure out how programming works. I think I'm 90% sure that's it.
So about 23 seconds this video, he actually starts lifting.
Got it.
Okay, I've seen one rep so far. So if you're ahead of me, Rusty, you go
Yeah,
ahead.
I just saw one. Yeah,
Okay.
I just saw that first rep. Let's say, Rob, I would get your hips a little bit higher, get your weight back a little bit more. You're pulling it off the ground, and then you're stopping, and then you're finishing the pull. It should be one smooth movement all the way up. It should be just like a deadlift, but with a jump. Set your back a little bit harder. This is definitely lightweight for you. You could probably go up quite a bit and still be able to get a solid set of 3. I don't know. Looks like you're going for a set of 5, maybe.
These are muscle cleans. You're not making contact with your hip at all.
Yeah.
So these are definitely light. I would widen your grip up just a tad, and then after the bar passes your knees. If you're already thinking about jumping your crotch forward and into the bar. We don't actually want the whole system going forward, and we don't want the bar being hit away from you, but think about it. Think about slamming your legs and your hips into the bar. And then that rebound will help you finish your jump and then also propel the bar upwards. So I think that in person, this could be fixed pretty quickly. But if you're trying to fix this remotely, just get into some hip contact drills for the clean itself. Maybe the snatch too, if you're snatching. Someone on your platform had a snatch on it, so hopefully you are snatching. But get your hip contact down, and I think those should be totally fine.
Yeah. You need to be a little bit more tighter before you actually pull the bar. So get your hips up higher. You're going to feel that stretch in your hamstring. That's fine. Don't drop your hips before you pull. And you need to take your time between reps to make sure you are rock solid. So as soon as your foot applies force to the ground, that bar starts moving and everything moves together. Your hips don't shoot up and then the bar shoots up. Everything comes up together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a big thing in coaching where people, if they let their deadlift run away for a while, or they're already a strong deadlifter or a rack puller, and they'll go back to the power clean. If you're pulling a heavy deadlift, it will feel like you're almost charging up into it. It won't break the floor immediately. Everything has to get tight for a second or two. If you're at like a mid shin rack pull, it's going to have to get tight for quite some time before it starts moving. You want to get all of that tightness before the bar even attempts to break the floor on the power clean. Mm-hmm. And then you can rocket it up, So there's a little bit of a stylistic difference between the deadlift and the rack pulls and power cleans. So,
yeah,
throwing the bar down.
I love it.
Yeah,
it's your own house. Do whatever you want.
Yeah. I fucking love it. I'm not gonna lie.
Throw it away from the platform if you want to.
yeah. Throw it at the nearest person.
It does feel pretty cool to do that at a commercial gym, and everyone just turns around and looks at you.
I've actually never done that in my entire life.
Throwing the bar down?
No, I've never done it. No, I've never thrown the bar down, even from a snatch.
Really?
How do you...
You always keep your hands on it when you bring it down?
Yeah, I've snatched 210 before, and I'll just catch it at my waist. It's not like a... Really? I'm not the best snatcher in the world, if that's the word for it, but...
You've just been canceled.
I think... Exactly, yeah.
I just don't want to use any energy I don't have to use, and catching a bar is tiring.
Then you'll accidentally start cutting, and you may just fall into abs randomly if you start using all that extra energy.
Abs are for 16-year-old boys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, we got another Rob going on.
Yeah,
right?
We got his deadlift.
I was hoping to see a squat. All right, we got a deadlift.
All right. So we've gone over a minute before actually the first rep. 1 minute 30. He set a new record.
2 minutes into it, he's going to pull the weight.
I thought I got it at 1:30, and it looked like he was about to do it, but he's just he's still.
Yeah, no. It's 2:05 when it actually breaks off.
Yeah, he looks at the camera, and then he's just.
Yeah.
Rob, killing me, man.
First thing I would say, I'm through rep run right now, so we'll see the speed difference on the rest of the subsequent reps. You don't need to control the descent like that. If you're doing kind of an intentional tempo descent, then ignore this. But it's a controlled fall. Similar, if you're willing just to drop the power clean, think about being willing to drop the deadlift. Get your shoulders in front of the bar, keep your knees relatively locked, and then just let it get to the ground. More often than not, it will get right back to midfoot. In terms of setting your back, you never really get your lower back into a great position, which is why I don't think you can get as tight as you should on the power clean. I think that may have to deal with the straps. Bending over for literally a minute and a half before starting to set your lower back is fatiguing, even if you're, in great shape. It's just having it rounded for that long does not help with your perception of it being straight. So if you can switch to a hook grip, switch to an over-under grip, or just get faster with your straps. And the next thing, think about aiming your butthole at the wall behind you, chest at the wall in front of you. And then I think these should be fine.
Yeah, the low back is the biggest thing that I would try and fix if I was actually there trying to coach you. You've got to start setting that lower back a little harder. Once you can maintain that tightness, heavier weights will go up easier. And I agree that setup is just so long, it gets real fatiguing being down there in that position.
Mick, what are you laughing at?
Have you watched until the end?
Yeah, he's
hunched over for about another 30 seconds of this video.
Yeah. All right, so helpful hints on this, Rob. Take your belt off immediately.
Yeah. Don't pass out, because I've seen that happen before.
Yeah, get your arms over your head, take your belt off, add in 2 conditioning days a week, and you should be fine.
I want to get crazy with
I'm actually glad he didn't crop this video, because that was he was hunched over for about 30 seconds after that set.
I actually don't like it when people crop their setup. I like to see all the nitpicking things going on in there.
One minor, part of the minutia of this is don't look straight down. Look out further. So I noticed on these reps you were looking literally straight down at the ground. Look out a little further. That might help set your back a little bit harder by bringing your chest up a little bit harder. So try that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. You'll see. I've noticed a lot of very mature pullers. They'll kind of resume a tucked chin position. They'll think it'll kind of let them round their back in a more appropriate way. Don't worry about that for now. Move your gaze up. You're not having a hard time setting your thoracic spine. It's all the lumbar, which is just about everyone's problem. But other than that, do some conditioning. Take less time setting your straps up. Maybe your conditioning can just be approaching the bar, setting your straps up, leaving, and then going back to it for reps. Just work through your setup, because it's tiring you out more than you realize it.
I'm tired just watching this. I'm watching him hunched over again at the moment. It's just
I can't remember. I did breathe that hard pulling people out of the river today or Friday, but that was.
What does that even mean, Rusty? What does that even mean?
I went floating in the river, and at the end of it, there was about 25 drunk people, and I was the most sober. So I was pulling them out of the river, that got real tiring real fast. Like the first 5, no problem, and then I started getting pretty tired.
It wasn't Wichita, was it? Because I've seen Wichita, and no one should be going near that.
Down in Austin.
Oh, you're down in Austin. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't do any cardio ever. I can't remember the last time I ran a mile. So, give me one thing to lift heavy one time.
Yeah.
All or nothing, man.
Alex, how much cardio do you do a week?
I fight other men for sport.
He's on the treadmill right now, Rusty.
That's all of the cardio that I need to do. I also like to take 3 to 4 10-minute walks per day as well. So if you count that as cardio.
Well, I mean, how much abs do you do? That's cardio.
I like to do abs 2 times a week. I'd say 2 times a week for abs.
For all the 16-year-old boys out there.
Well, what do you do for ab work?
Well, right now I'm chasing down a better front lever right now. So one of the days I'm working on planche stuff and front lever stuff. The other day I'm just doing like a bunch of volume stuff. So like hanging leg raises and then ab wheels. And I don't dedicate a specific time. I'll just superset them in my other work. So if I'm like pressing, squatting, benching, whatever, I'll just do it in between.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I still do some stuff.
And we are getting closer to Alex getting his SSC revoked. It's every episode is just a little bit closer.
It's funny. I remember when Chase was still at the athletic club. He was hitting the ab wheel a lot, right? He was hitting the ab, and he overhead press. I watched him overhead press 370 pounds. It was ugly. I thought he was going to die, but I've seen him do it when at the last seminar. And I remember, I was thinking, when he was working all of his ab stuff, he was like, yeah, I just think having stronger abs is going to help my press. I'm like, dude, you lay back with 370 pounds and press it over your head. Your abs are strong enough.
You know what I think it is, Rusty? I think, unironically, it's mind-muscle connection. I think it's super helpful. I think it's just brace. I don't think it's actually, you're imparting some tension on the muscle. You're going to see whatever benefits that tension imparts. But I think a lot of it is helping about how to feel them appropriately. If I have someone who is like dramatically overextending their back in the squat, ab work. If I'm having someone who's rounding in the squat, I'm doing Supermans or arch bodies or anything in the opposite direction. I think it's a teaching tool. But then also, if you're just trying to get shredded abs, you need to do ab work. So.
And there it is.
That's it. And then also try to have a dedicated at least 2 sessions a week of doing delt work, I would say. Dedicate an hour a week to delts. That's very important.
Where do biceps fall in all this?
Any pulling day I would say. There's a lot of biceps going on. And then any benching.
Biceps, I'm talking just the biceps.
Just biceps?
When's that come in?
Normally, if I am in a big fatigue hole from the week of practice and lifting, and I'm like, I need to work out today because I try to train every day, it's fuck around delts and biceps.
Okay.
As many times as I can. So depending on how beat up I am, that could be 1 time a week, that could be 2.
Do you have one of those plates that some of the guys at the bros wear at the gym? It's like it hangs around your neck and it's sort of a metal thing on your chest, so it stops your elbows from going back. Have you seen those things?
Yeah, I have. I wish I have.
It's like a preacher curl, but it's like mobile, so you can walk around and talk to all the bros while you're doing it.
Unironically, I think those are just for posing purposes because it just mushes your tricep meat on there, so your arms look huge. Your arms look fucking huge. You can add 3 inches to your arms with one easy trick.
Question in the comments: Mick, were you a lifter prior to developing the app? Well, I was lifting. I don't know if I call myself a lifter, but yeah, I definitely. Was recommended to do the other 5x5 program, which we shan't mention. We shall not mention their name. We'll get it. And then I sort of stumbled across Starting Strength and read that, and that for a while. So yeah, I was lifting before I did the app. All right, I think we've got one more video.
Yeah.
Troy.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, Troy.
Yep, Troy.
Oh, we've had Troy on a few times now. Hang on, we got a question from Troy, or a comment anyway. He said, "Don't be too hard on Alex and Rusty." I'm not sure. Anyway, that's a bit strange, but anyway.
I think me and Alex are hard on each other.
Yeah. He said, "I've only sent in videos the last 2 weeks. The first week, the knees went too far forward. This week's knees too far back. I'm hoping this one's a charm." And he says, "If background is necessary, I've been an ultra marathoner for the last decade and just started barbell training in March, 47 years old. His body weight has gone up from 144 to 165 since March.
Nice.
Deadlift up to 210, bench 140, press 95, but his low bar squats haven't felt right, so he's dropped the weight down to get the form right."
I love these.
Congrats on weightlifting.
These were so much better than the previous videos that we saw. So a few things. You are bracing on the way down. You're starting your descent and just kind of, closing it off. Take a big intentional breath before you start each rep. It's funny because you're an ultra marathon runner. You don't need to worry about getting tired under the bar. But take a big breath, lock it in before you start moving. Anytime you're moving, you're not breathing. And the next thing is I would probably move your hands in. I'm not sure if you have any shoulder flexibility problems, but every session, try to work that in a little bit tighter and tighter and tighter each time. Otherwise, I think these are great.
I think he could bring them in. It doesn't look like he's struggling with elbow position or anything like that. He could definitely bring those in. I agree. Make sure you're bracing before every rep. It seems like on that last one, you started getting a little bit tired, and then you actually did it the way you're supposed to. You took that big breath, you squeezed, and then you went down. But you got to think, man, this isn't cardio. This is weightlifting. So you got to take your time between reps. Make sure you're getting that big breath and setting yourself up for a good rep. Knees are moving pretty much the whole time. Don't step so far back into the rack. All you need to do is just clear the pins. My kids like to do this thing where they take it out of the rack and then they take 4 steps back. I'm like, well, if you have to rack this all of a sudden, you're going to be running to the rack. So you just need to take one decent step back, get in the middle of the rack. You need to push your hips back harder and bend over a little bit more. Your knees are going so far forward, all of the weight's going forward. It's going to be really hard to bend over with your knees that far forward. So think about sitting your hips back, big chest, point it down. You're going to point it down a little bit more than you're comfortable with. These are looking better though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Improvement wise, A+. A+, man. Eat more food, do some delts. Yeah. And then just run your LP out as hard as you can.
Yeah, congrats on putting on some weight. I've tricked a marathoner or a triathlete. She was into weightlifting, and she hasn't looked back. She's just been competing in weightlifting this entire time. So congrats on getting under the bar, man.
I'd be curious to know, how it's actually affected his marathoning if he's still doing it. Putting on 20 pounds.
It can only benefit him.
All right. So good work, Troy. Got one last question from the comments for you, Alex. It's from Brian. He said, not sure how regularly your beating up other men is, but can you describe your scheduling? Lifting same day, avoiding lifting day before or after, heavy, medium, light, relative to the beatings?
So it depends. So if I would say that my lifting schedule is not actually programmed, and it will shriek, and it's nails on a chalkboard to a lot of people who are very into programming and into coaching. I mean, I am myself, but it's not anywhere near as regimented as it should, because of the fact that the performance events that I'm doing can vary they can vary my performance so much. Right now my working goal for myself is to get as much mat time in as possible, because I've had a few months away from the mats. So if I can get in there for 2 hours a day, I will, and I'll get some lifting in. But if I can get in there for 4.5 hours a day, I also will. And then that's gonna screw up my lifting as much as it has to. So on the days where I'm more beat up, I'll focus on accessory work. But on the days that I can get in and lift before then, I'll just run with a pretty standard heavy, light, medium schedule for the big lifts. I will alternate whatever I'm doing for my squat and the deadlift. So essentially, I'll run HLM for squats and then just flip it for deadlifts, essentially. And then that works pretty well for me. I would say that if you have like a very defined athletic schedule, you can get away with planning properly and periodize properly. But if you're kind of in this intermediate hell of just a very enthusiastic casual who has to take whatever practice they can get, it can really throw off your schedule. So,
all right. Hopefully that answered it for you there, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other pressing things you guys wanted to argue about, or we've pretty much covered the bodybuilding stuff today?
Just letting Alex do himself. Fantastic.
I think I'm trying to convince another starting strength coach to do a natural bodybuilding show with me in a few years. So if you know anybody, Rusty, let me know.
Okay, I didn't know if you had someone in mind.
No, I asked Michael Burgos. He said no. He didn't want to get in the board shorts and tan up with me. So I'll find somebody.
God, I can't wait for this to happen. I'm gonna talk so much shit.
You think
fantastic?
I think Steph will put that in the Sunday starting strength report that goes out.
Oh yeah, something will be in there. Something will be in there.
We've got a couple more comments. Jeff Riggins, I need to quit my job so it doesn't interfere with my lifting. With a little laughing emoji.
All for that.
All right. Yep. Good work. Yep. Do it. Troy Workman, thanks for the input. Running. Oh, this is the ultramarathoner. Okay. Said running was harder at first, like wearing a 20-pound weight vest. Not running more than 3 miles at a time right now, but my body is adjusting to the new body weight. There you go.
It
Nice.
it will keep you injury free once you get accustomed to the heavier body weight and you're able to push those distances you were pushing. You will be a lot less prone to injury, for sure.
Cool. All right. Thanks a lot, fellas. And if anyone out there watching wants to submit a video, just look for the email address in the comments. And that's it. Thanks, guys.
Okay. All right. See you guys.
See ya.
Bye, y'all.